Filipinos aren't on American television. We're not in American media. So where they're getting this information at all is just really strange. I mean, the only time we're brought up in history books is like World War II for like a paragraph, like when like helping the US fight the Japanese. That's like the only time we're ever mentioned like in this country. So I don't know where people get these ideas, but I hope that can change in the future.
According to the 2010 U.S. Census, Filipinos are the second largest Asian group in the United States. However, we're almost nowhere to be seen in popular American media today. What we do see about Filipinos are considered stereotypes.
4. Do not correct their accents.
Can you please pass the pork?
I didn't make any pork.
These portrayals affect how people see Filipinos and how we see ourselves. We asked several young Filipinos what being Filipino truly means to them. These are their stories.
Growing up, it was always just, there was this duality of like living as a Filipino, like with a Filipino family and then living in America. So it was more of how to identify as an American, I guess.
In all honesty, it really doesn't mean much to me. I never really understood the desire to be like proud of what you were born as, because I didn't work to be born as Filipino. It was just something that happened. It wasn't anything under my control. I don't really feel connected to Filipino culture.
To me, like 3 words that come to mind are strength, endurance, and pride. Mainly because a lot of the Filipinos I know, like especially my parents, they came from rock bottom. So a lot of people kind of make fun of Filipinos for being like dirty, gross people, but my parents don't care. They know that they've done well, and that's how their pride like really shows.
Like unknown history. I don't know why, like, because there's so much about my heritage that I honestly really don't know that much about, which, I don't know, like it feels weird.
Being Filipina means owning who you are, loving yourself, loving your country, loving your family, and upholding all of the values you've grown up with, and embracing your culture. That's what being Filipina means to me, and also being socially and politically aware of your surroundings.
So to me, being Filipino is embracing your genealogy and kind of sharing in this like narrative that isn't exactly, doesn't have this solid form, but it's coming together at the end of the day, celebrating family. I guess that's like really general, but there really isn't a way to like actually describe what being Filipino means to me.
And I'm just drawing a parallel between culture and language. It's really hard, or it's really easy for people to say, this is the right way to say that, this is the wrong way to say that, when in reality, as a linguist, you're not supposed to be a prescriptionist, you're supposed to be a descriptionist. And that's what I'm starting to see with my culture. I don't get to prescribe what it means to be a Filipino, really. I get to describe it. But beyond that, I get to be a part of it.
Una ko naisip is, ako yan. Ako yan.
What is your favorite color?
Filipino. They're very hard workers, and family is very important to them.
While it is understandable that the American media may not fully understand what being Filipino is all about, one would think that our fellow Filipinos would attempt to portray their experiences without becoming stereotypes themselves. Filipinos with spheres of influence, combined with Western perceptions of Filipinos, make us appear to only be maids, singers, dancers, or people with excessive amounts of pride for being Filipino, particularly during boxing matches or beauty pageants. These things are not necessarily bad, but this also affects how many Filipinos see themselves, making it difficult for them to relate to someone who looks like them in film and television.
Sadie! She's beautiful. Look! Mommy got you a surprise. She's Filipino like you and me. And this embroidery on her dress, this is the Philippines' national flower, the sampag, the national flower. Isn't she pretty?
Gorgeous. Stunning.
She looks smart.
I like this one. Mommy, you can play with Nanny Barbie.
These things, along with many other personal factors, have affected people's connections to their culture in one way or another.
And I feel like as I was growing up, I felt really disconnected because my group of friends and I, like, we were all Filipino, but we identified as more on the American side just because all our movies, television, our books were all American. So there wasn't any like acknowledgement of Filipino like folklore or like stories, probably just like the momo and stuff like that. But we were pretty Americanized, and the only way we knew our culture was through food and simple Tagalog phrases.
Not necessarily disconnected, but more per se, didn't have the right timing of being able to connect with it fully. For example, as I said before, I did not grow up speaking Tagalog, but now I'm playing catch up right now and trying to learn Tagalog. A lot of times when I would meet other Filipino people and they would try to speak to me in Tagalog, and I have to tell them I don't speak the language, the look of disappointment on their face, it really bothers me. But what bothers me even more is when they would tell me that, oh, your parents didn't raise you right if you don't speak the language. That really upset me because I feel like you have no place to tell me that my parents raised me wrong just because they didn't teach me a language that I'm not using every day.
They see me as just American because they think the language is what solidifies, what validates being a Filipino.
I myself feel very connected to my culture. Growing up, I was exposed to a lot of like cultural folk tales, a lot of dance, a lot of music. But what I've noticed is that like back home, since I don't necessarily look like the typical Filipina, a lot of people maybe didn't accept me into that or didn't or kind of just like told me that I wasn't Filipina.
A bit more closeted. Definitely stayed within the confines of my family and the four walls that we had. Outside of that, it was kind of difficult for me to really explore it further, to really embrace it further because I only had a small handful of Filipino friends who were also kind of closeted in their being Filipino, so it was kind of just cyclical in that manner.
Part of me was just like, maybe like I should just like stop speaking Tagalog and just like start talking to English with like so many people, like with every people I know, and like just pretend like I can't speak Tagalog. So like some part of me adapted that, and like it really like contributes like my loss of like Filipino identity while growing up here.
Feeling ko, Pilipinas pa rin yung home ko, pero at the same time, iniisip ko, pag bumalik ako doon, tingin sa akin ng mga tao, iba na, Americanized na.
Philippines feels like home, pero pag bumalik ka doon, yung mga tao parang hindi ka na welcomed as home. Like, how does that make you feel?
Malungkot, tsaka masakit kasi saan ako pupunta? Saan ako belong? Hindi ako belong sa Pilipinas, hindi rin ako belong dito. Saan ako lulugar?
My dad is actually texting me both Tagalog words and Visayan words because my mom is Visayan, and they would have arguments sometimes because they both speak different dialects once in a while, and my mom likes to mix different dialects together, and she makes her own language, and we don't know what the fuck is going on. So yeah, that's always some of the funniest things, just like trying to pick up all these different dialects and different languages. And yeah, that's one way I've been trying to connect with it.
No matter where you go and you stumble or like cross paths with another Filipino, like that person is like, you automatically feel like that tito, tita vibe, or you automatically feel like that kuya ate vibe, or like little brother, little sister vibe. And that's what I really love about it, is just like sometimes like you already build this strong sense of family.
Media portrayals of Filipinos in recent years have been extremely narrow. For the most part, Asians and other people of color are seen as the other, or eternal visitors to the United States, and are lumped into one homogeneous category.
You admiring me yesterday in the courtyard. What? Oh, you don't speak English. You like me sing.
You like me sing very much. I totally speak English. I even did a little research on you. You're a foreign exchange student named Sunshine Corazon because you're from the Philippines where it's sunny every day.
Portrayals of Filipinos as people who cannot speak English well, or not at all, are common in film and television. Due to these pervasive ideas and more, discrimination occurs in and out of Filipino communities.
You know, I get so upset when I see Americans talk to him like he doesn't understand because of his accent, and I get even more upset when I see Phil Ams doing that.
Narinig nila yung Filipino accent. So first time ko na feel na, yun nga, pinoint out nila yun. Tapos feeling ko like I'm the wrong kind of different. Tapos, yun nga, tapos sinabi rin nila na yung pananamit, gano'n, hindi cool as them, gano'n. So, sa una masakit. Kasi tinawag din nila ako na like, fob, ganun.
How I've been discriminated against, I feel like it's within my own people. I know it's like a weird concept because usually when you think of discrimination, you're thinking about from the outside in, you know, but mostly it's like Filipinos like telling me that I don't look very Filipino.
A lot of people, when they see me, they don't assume I'm Filipino. A lot of people think I'm Latino. But a lot of the Latinos thought I was Filipino. So no one really wanted me around. A lot of my friends, especially since I can't speak Tagalog too well, thought that I wasn't Filipino enough. They would make jokes like, you should go to Mexico or something like that. That's where you belong.
Thinking back, I can never really pinpoint any moments I was actually discriminated, at least for, you know, my ethnic background.
Discrimination could go a bunch of like bullying, saying like I have chinky eyes and all that. And first, I didn't mind. I know I have chinky eyes. That's just my characteristics. But then it came down to like making fun of the food, like the baon that I would bring to school, and I felt kind of bad bringing my baon once in a while because kids would make fun of it, and it's just like, why would you make fun of it? This is some really good food. I don't need to be eating no Lunchable.
As a kid, I would run around the park. This is when I lived in Japan and I lived on the naval base. This kid almost knocked me over and he's like, "Move it, Chinese girl!" And I was like, I don't know how old I was like 6 or 7. I shouted back, "I'm not Chinese!"
A group of kids jumped me in 5th grade because they were telling me to go back to China, and I didn't like that. Like every time somebody would say that, I would get so angry. But this time, you know, I got jumped by 5 kids, and what do you know? Like now, next thing you know, like swinging punches, throwing at 5 other people.
When I was younger, I wasn't actually discriminated for being Filipino, or at least to my memory, not a lot of the time. Most of the time it was for me being queer.
I've had some friends say that, Jamie, you're not fob. And I mean, I am. I'm from the Philippines. I was raised there. I'm not from here. I'm not a citizen of America. And I don't know, I just felt like they were saying that I wasn't a fob because I didn't have an accent. I could speak really good English. I didn't look Asian. And I don't know, it just felt really frustrating that they were labeling me or telling me who I was when I identify myself as a Filipina, and that's where I was born. That's my like life. That's all I know.
Because when people say Asia, they think of like China and Japan and Korea, where it's like dense cities, super high tech. But for some reason, like the Philippines, like I don't know why we're not thought of as Asian by default. It really bothers me in that sense. I remember a friend, he was telling me, like, well, you're Pacific Islander, right? Because you're in the Pacific. But he was a Japanese studies minor, so I was laughing because I was like, well, Japan's in the Pacific. You don't hesitate to call them Asian. So that's one thing that always makes me feel like being Filipino puts me at a disadvantage, because I think Filipinos are Asian. We're geographically in Asia, but I think there's a lot of stereotypes, a lot of like prejudices subconscious bias toward Filipinos.
For the people like me that feel really detached about their own culture, and be Filipino or not, I say it's never too late to get in touch with that. You know, take the time, as much time as you need, to look back into it, because this is where you came from. And sometimes having that connection to your ancestors, to the history that you came from, really puts into perspective a lot of things from where you will be moving forward. Because this is how you will probably be identified for the rest of your life.
I think the best way to do that, and like the easiest way, is to jump into movies, because there's subtitles, and you like hear the phrases and the words that they're saying, and a lot of the Filipino culture is embedded in that.
Education is really important, not just in like receiving a piece of paper that says you have a degree, but really knowing like your narrative and how that's situated within like the infrastructure of our current society.
Diversity is such a huge issue in the media. It's really hard for us to see ourselves there as like Filipinos or Philippines, because, you know, the media tells us to look one way. The media tells us to do this thing, do that thing. This is acceptable, this isn't acceptable. So embrace who you are, find your voice, express it. Like, you have a story to tell.
Ang gusto ko lang is magkaisa tayo. Kasi, galing akong Pilipinas, dito ka laki. Pero, may pagkakaiba man tayo. Meron din tayong similarities. Parehas tayong Pilipino. Kasi Filipino, that's Filipino-American. May dagdag lang. Pero, yun nga, gusto ko lang magkaisa tayo. Tapos, try nating intindihin yung isa't isa. Yung mga pagkakaiba natin. And try nating matuto sa mga pagkakaiba natin at hindi i-bring down yung isa't isa.
Be proud of who you are and be proud of your culture. Like, our culture is very valuable. We shouldn't have to try to be like another country. We should just be proud to be who we are.
Explore like other cultures and beliefs and like immerse yourselves in it. Like, learn from the positives from it, but like we should also like try our best to not have those like negative like effects affect our own identity.
It's your culture, own it, you know? You get to have a piece of it, and you're a piece of it. So, you know, don't be discouraged by what people say. Just you do you.
I think Manny Pacquiao sucks.